Hey, I'm Lucy and welcome to Dissectologists. Today I'm talking with Becca Taylor and Faith Lindell-Taylor from the USA Jigsaw Puzzle Association. Founded in 2020, today the organization helps connect puzzlers coast to coast and serves as the official American liaison to the World Jigsaw Puzzle Federation. So Becca and Faith, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So before we get into the organization itself, I'd love to start just kind of with each of you as puzzlers. So Becca, what was your relationship with puzzles before USA JPA became part of your life?
I used to have a much smaller collection of puzzles, but I did have a collection. No, I've been a lifelong puzzler. I started puzzling when I was about 5 years old, and into adulthood, it was always my decompression activity. But before I discovered speed puzzling, I would do the hardest puzzles that I could come across, because otherwise I would buy a puzzle and I'd be done with it in a few minutes and just be like, well, that was a waste of money. So it's kind of ironic now how many puzzles I'll see and be like, oh, I bet I could do that in 5 minutes. Bye. But yes, so I stumbled into this. I discovered a speed puzzling event at a local bar in 2022, and it happened to be a week before the first USA Jigsaw Nationals. So by that point, it was a little too late to sign up, but I watched the live stream that weekend because I met somebody at this event who told me about it, and haven't looked back since.
Faith, for you, what was your relationship with puzzles before the organization?
Yeah, I mean, like Becca, I've been puzzling my whole life. And then over time, I learned that to try and keep up with daily life, I became the holiday puzzler. So, the days off, and then I'd be like, oh, I could do a puzzle. This is so great. Because when I sat down, I wouldn't get up. So I really just focused on doing it during the holidays. And it's really nice to have it back in my life again and able to, I can't say my control is any better, my self-control, but it is nice to be able to puzzle on a more regular basis.
Totally get the self-control part. I think I just bought 3 new puzzles yesterday, so there's always something in a shopping cart.
Every time I add to the collection, it's like, it could be worse.
Thank you. Yes, and I think it actually is cheaper than gardening, which is my other addiction.
Yeah.
So what led to the founding of the USA Jigsaw Puzzle Association in 2020, correct? I mean, pretty recent.
Again, holiday puzzling, probably at Thanksgiving this time in 2019. And I just thought there's got to be some type of competition. So I started doing some digging and found that there was the World Championship. And that just led into me thinking, wow, this is brilliant. And we should start an organization that's growing. I was doing that early, like in 2020, January of 2020. And I had been looking on Facebook for puzzle groups in the US and couldn't really find anything. And I'm like, I'm starting this. This is a great idea. This is amazing. I mean, exactly what I want to do. And I kind of left it for a week or two. And then when I went back onto Facebook, somebody had started USA Jigsaw Puzzle Association. And I was like, what? I know this wasn't here 2 weeks ago. I messaged and I said, I think this is a brilliant idea. I've been looking. I'd love to chat. And that was Tammy McLeod. And she was sweet enough. She reached back out and said, well, there might be a fit. I have a few other people were interested. And at that same time, her and her team, her Pacific Puzzlers, had just gone to St. Paul Winter Carnival at the end of January of 2020. And they had won. And, so there was all this excitement there. And Val, who's also been on the board since the beginning, she was there. They got dethroned, so that was a big deal. And then Allie was teammates with Tammy. And so, and I don't know how she found Jonathan, honestly, because he was also one of the original members. So so these conversations, so this is all happening about January of 2020. And I remember that we had our first official phone call in February of 2020. I was visiting my parents in Utah, and, I thought, gosh, what have I gotten myself into? And then it went from there. That was that first phone call. And then we started to meet on a regular basis. And everything went from there. And then, so we celebrate 6 years, I think in May. It's amazing to think that that's how we started. And it was right before COVID, because I think everyone thinks that we did this because of COVID. It's no, sure. We actually, it was not much before, but we had that first phone call, maybe a couple of weeks to a month before COVID hit.
Wow. The timing of that is really zany, right?
Yeah. Right.
And I just love it's one of those things that was, I have an idea, but should I do it? I don't know. And then it was oh, someone else had the same idea.
Yeah.
What gap did the group see in the puzzle world at that time?
I think that we all, I mean, I guess I can't really speak for the others, but I mean, we all clearly saw some type of gap. But I think for me, when I looked at the World website, you saw that there were all these like affiliate, not all, but there were a handful of affiliate countries, and there was somebody listed for the US. And we were like, wait, what? But we thought, oh my gosh, there's all these other countries that are doing these organizations and we don't have one and we need to have one. And then, we learned that there was the sole American at the 2019 World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship. And we were like, oh, we need to know more. Why is there only one American there? And so we just thought, oh, okay, if we can organize, then maybe we can create something and a place, that puzzlers can go to find out where they have these competitions. And yeah.
Wait, who was the sole person? Is it somebody who's in the organization now or?
No. So you want to take this one, Becca?
It's AJ Jacobs, right?
Yeah, I think they came in last place. Because he made his family puzzle with them.
Yeah, it's the guy who's the author of a book called The Puzzler. And there's a chapter in there about how he and his family were on vacation and kind of stumbled into attending the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship and became the USA representatives. It's quite funny.
An awesome story.
Yeah.
Oh, see, and this just fits the vibe of puzzling. Totally odd and random and fun and like, hey, why not?
Right.
Yep. Delightfully quirky.
Was the organization originally created like around just the idea of competitive puzzling alone, or was there a broader vision in the beginning too?
No, I mean, our mission statement has pretty much stayed the same. We were pretty intentional about creating that when we officially formed, and I don't think it's changed. I mean, yeah, of course there is the speed puzzling dynamic to it. It's such a great hobby, and we didn't want to like leave out just the hobbyists, right? So yes, it kind of started because of that. We knew we wanted that to be an element of it, but it's not the only thing.
How do you define the JPA's mission today for those who, maybe were like me before I started this podcast, like just randomly puzzling here and there, had no idea about this community, had never heard of USA JPA until I started researching puzzling. How would you define the mission?
Well, I think it's largely still the same. Like the services that we provide within the community are centered around speed puzzling and creation of the competitive activity. But we are trying to broadly bring together puzzlers across the nation. And one of the things that's evolving a bit now is our emphasis on creating state and local and regional affiliate organizations and connections there to help people find each other in their local areas. And a lot of the activities that those affiliate organizations are doing are not necessarily speed puzzling competitions. So there's lots of swaps or lots of general puzzling activities or alternate types of semi-competitive things like marathons. So I think it's definitely broadening in scope in that regard. And as speed puzzling has kind of gone mainstream, if we could be so bold as to claim that, we're starting to get more and more media attention.
I think so.
I think the scale of what we are able to do for our national championship is going to continue to grow. We had a pretty significant growth year this year, jumping up from what used to be an activity happening with a few hundred people in a hotel ballroom to taking over 2 floors of a massive metropolitan convention center. So that the sort of explosion rate continues to grow.
Is there anything else that you wish more casual puzzlers understood about USA JPA?
Yeah, there's a lot that we do sort of beyond competitions. We do traveling puzzles. We do monthly meetups over Zoom. And we provide a lot of guidance to members who are event planners in their own right, who are hosting things in their regions. We try to celebrate a lot of our members through member highlights, and then just sort of facilitate connections across various virtual platforms and social media and good old Zoom.
Again, if you love puzzles, like you'll find other people that love puzzles and talk all day about jigsaw puzzles. It's a nice group. It's a great community. So, if someone's looking for that, they can find that either, with us or with their state orgs.
Yeah, I mean, because it is kind of like this hierarchical sort of organization, but it's an organization with a lot of organizations or events attached. If someone, is listening right now, who, especially I think a casual puzzler, because I feel like competitive puzzlers are pretty plugged into this or find it really quickly. But like for a casual puzzler, if they're listening and they're kind of like, okay, but like, how do I start getting in? Like, what's the best way for them to sort of connect the dots on getting involved with JPA?
Yeah, there's several ways. So anyone can engage in our social media platforms, whether or not you're a member. We have very active presence on both Instagram and Facebook, and we have a Facebook community forum that a lot of people use to advertise events or gatherings in their own regions. You can also look on our website under other events, so people submit puzzle-related activities or events to us all the time, and so we're trying to keep sort of a central repository of that information across the nation. I think if you want to join us as a member, one of the things that's really beneficial for casual puzzlers is the traveling puzzle programs, an opportunity to get to try out new brands where either, they're a brand new smaller boutique company, or maybe it's fancy puzzles, something that has a really high price point, and you can sign up to get to try one, and then you mail or pass it on to the next person on the list. And that's a really nice way to start engaging that doesn't require any sense of competition. I think also something that's important to say is that speed puzzling is for everyone. So this is going to sound like a convoluted sentence, but you don't have to be a speed puzzler to enjoy speed puzzling. So I know a lot of people who are casual puzzle enthusiasts who will come to events like our state or national championships because anyone can sign up for them. And even if you're not, trying to end up on a podium, it's still a lot of fun to do. And I guarantee anyone who would describe themselves as a casual puzzler is a lot faster than the average human adult at solving puzzles. So it's also kind of validating.
Like you might surprise yourself.
If you're listening to this, you're probably a speed puzzler.
Oh, that's funny that you put it that way. Because after having, the neuroscientist on and what she kind of talked about, you challenge your brain that way, you build neural pathways. Now I've been more open, and I hope other puzzlers will be as well, to taking a more challenging step in puzzling, just knowing it's doing something for my brain that I didn't really know before. So yeah, I guess speed puzzling would be that thing, wouldn't it?
Well, and you don't have to do it with any degree of seriousness. One of the things that we try to maintain within USA JPA is a healthy respect for, at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of adults sitting around doing puzzles, so we don't take ourselves too seriously, though it is a very serious activity for which you should, train and invest. But also, I think if you are doing more puzzles than the average person, you are probably faster at them than the average person too.
Becca, as someone who leads local and state puzzling events yourself, what role do local and state puzzle groups play in sort of a bigger USA JPA ecosystem for you guys?
That's a fun question because we just had our quarterly swap on Sunday and had about 100 people come out. Just really lovely.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the thing that's really nice about the local and regional events is that you have an opportunity to connect with people in your communities that you might otherwise never cross paths with. And that's true on the national level too. I mean, the types of people that I've made friends with through USA JPA, like our volunteer Simi, who's a literal rocket scientist, or my friend Susanna, who was at that first bar event, who is a computational linguist. Like, these are not people whose paths I would have naturally crossed as someone who works at a university. And that's very true of the local and regional events too. So one of my dearest friends now, who I trade wooden puzzles with all the time, lives about 3 blocks away from me. And we had never met each other before we happened to run into each other at one of these swaps. So I think that's lovely. Another benefit is that there's a really nice barter economy in the puzzle community. So we are able to finance our habits by doing a lot of trade. And it's really nice to have something that is an analog, non-screen activity where you can also, to some extent, remove socioeconomic barriers from the mix too, by there just being a really healthy trade circuit.
Along those lines, if you're listening and you're looking to source puzzles, just find a puzzle swap where there are speed puzzlers. They want to give them away.
Yeah.
It's the best way to get free puzzles.
So true.
And you can find swaps on Facebook. And so, your libraries might have them. But yeah, if you can find one that speed puzzlers go to, man, you're in, because you are going to get so many puzzles.
It's a really nice way to make intergenerational connections too. Because I find I have speed puzzling friends, or just puzzle buddies in general, from their teens to their 90s and everywhere in between. And same as before when I was speaking about career paths, like, these are not people who you necessarily would have had an opportunity to cultivate friendships with under normal circumstances. But I think that's something really lovely about the community too.
Yeah, I think that's going to be just the discussion about the community. I mean, I would just echo what Becca said, is The people that I've met on this journey have been amazing. And I think what keeps me on the board is the connections that other people are making. So, I get tired sometimes, but then we'll host an event or not even, we'll be somewhere with puzzlers and they'll talk about how, that they had virtually like puzzled with these people and now they're traveling to go puzzle in person with someone and they aren't speed puzzlers, but that connection is so strong and they just want to try it out. And I just love hearing those stories.
I love the connection piece. That is so powerful. And again, I guess a side of JPA I wasn't really myself even aware of. I know we've kind of been leaning away and more into the casual puzzler because I just think that's an interesting side to talk about that maybe just doesn't get as much play from other people. But let's dig into the competitive. What makes a competition feel fair? Like, are there standards around things like puzzle selection? Like, how crazy does this get?
This part we do take really seriously.
I mean, we'll have like an hour-long discussion about, the lighting or even longer. So it's funny because as Becca said, like we want to not take it seriously, and I think we do. We have fun. I mean, that's at the core of what we do and building that community. But then we take it so seriously. Like we really do want it to be as fair as we can make it for everyone. Lighting is always a huge concern. Table size, tabletop. So I think that we try our hardest. We talk about all the different elements to make it as fair as possible. And it's something, yeah, we do take that very seriously.
I think just equitable conditions in general. Like we try to make sure that everyone has the same exact table, same exact amount of space. The lighting is critical too, because if you have a venue where some people are advantaged by where they are in the room, like relative to the windows, for instance, it really can make a huge difference in your puzzling experience. One of the newest innovations is the table divider.
What's this?
Before, because you're almost always sharing a table in individual competitions and often in pairs as well.
Okay.
And a lot of times people would kind of keep their pieces closer to the edge of the table to avoid the risk of mixing with the other person or the other pair's pieces. But since we've added in a table divider that is essentially a piece of wood that goes across the table in the middle, now you can push your pieces all the way up against the barrier. And so everyone is more effectively operating with exactly the same amount of space, and they can utilize that space more fully. So that's been a really exciting innovation within the competitive framework that I think a lot of competitions have looked at this model and started adopting it.
How do official rankings work, and what do they add to the competitive side of puzzling?
Yes, we have JPAR, the Jigsaw Puzzle Association ranking that was created by Tammy. We again, another thing we talk a lot about. We have some speed puzzlers that really hate the ranking for whatever reason because it's stressful, and I think people, we don't want to rank ourselves, but we do want to rank ourselves. But we do talk a lot about sanctioning events so that we're only including events that we know have had equitable conditions. And that's an ongoing discussion about what to sanction, what not to sanction. We have a team that looks at that. And the ranking, I think, is pretty complicated algorithm for people to understand. Just because you win a competition doesn't mean your ranking is going to go up. If you beat people you don't normally beat, then you will see progress and their rank's going to go down and yours is going to go up. But if you beat everyone and it's everyone you should be beating, you might not see a change. But yeah, I think it depends on who you talk to. We have some exciting things that I think are going to come out soon with that. We have a whole team that kind of looks at it and does analysis on all that data to, we have some data nerds, shocking, in the puzzle community. It's great.
I think people use it differently too. Like I think some puzzlers are really motivated by seeing their number change over time, whether they're looking at it relative to anyone else or just looking at their own number, which the latter I think is the healthier mentality. And we're working on some ways that it will be easier to visualize that. Another thing that computation takes into account is the degree of difficulty of the puzzle.
Oh.
So if you do really well on an easy puzzle, it does not impact your score as deeply as doing really well on a difficult puzzle. And that's just looking at the time spread across individuals and relative to past performance. So it is actually like quite a complicated formula.
Thank goodness there's people who know how to figure that out.
Preach.
Yeah.
How do you think about accessibility for like newer competitors who are probably really intimidated by the speed side? And like, are there table sections for people who are new, or sometimes are you sitting next to like the number one competitor in the nation and you don't know it? Like, how does that work?
One of the reasons the JPAR is actually helpful to us is that we try to arrange the room so that you're next surrounded by people of relatively the same speed. And that's really beneficial to our volunteers, so they're not running across the floor trying to catch finishes. So generally in most competitions, like at the scale of a USA JPA event, you're going to be grouped around people who match you. And that's, I think, really healthy and good for the puzzlers too, because it's more psychologically affirming if you're kind of keeping pace with the people within your eyesight. But this is something we think about a lot. And actually, one of the things that we introduced at the Nationals this year was something we called the special competition room. And that was Faith and my baby, if you will. And one of the things I loved about that was it really made speed puzzling accessible to everyone who was there, regardless of what they were doing in the quote unquote main competition room. They could come and play fun games with us in the special competition room and still be prize eligible. So it was things like puzzle chess. We had some creative formats where you and your partner received one bag of pieces and a different poster, and your other pair that made up your team of four had a bag of pieces and your poster. But you just had to tell each other what you saw in the image. You couldn't share it. So we just did fun things like that. And I think that really kind of leveled the playing field and made everything that was happening in that room a little more accessible to people, regardless of what speed they might have been coming in at, and kind of harkened back to the roots of this activity, which is eclectic and fun and for giggles.
I really love the room. That's fun. More game oriented than speed oriented, which I think resonates.
Yeah.
We were really intentional because I think people do think that we're all about the speed puzzling, and we're like, no, we love puzzles in general, and we really wanted to bring that fun feel to it and kind of give it, give space for everyone. So that third floor, we had that convention space, like people were just down there puzzling. We had large format puzzles out, and you could sit there and work with somebody and make friends. But I think in general, like I do see that there's like within, like people are like, well, I'm kind of curious. Like I'm speed puzzle curious. So they're like kind of scared to jump in, and you're like, just go for it. But I would say they're like, go to a local bar, grab your friend or whomever, make them go with you. I've puzzled with my kids. They don't really puzzle. I like make everyone do this with me. And like you just go to a bar that's having a puzzle competition, or the library, or there's a little store here that does it, and have fun with it, and just see if it's something you might be, you can dip your toes in, right? Without having to get super serious, and see if it's something you'll enjoy.
Speed puzzle curious.
I've coined that new phrase.
I love it so much. So let's talk sort of the world stage. As the official liaison for the US, what does it mean to represent, or, just even connect the United States puzzlers on a world stage?
Well, Val Coit, who's also on our board, was on the world board for a while. She's now back on it. But we just try to to be part of that community. I mean, clearly now we've got a board member on both boards, which is great, but there's a lot of growth there. And so we want to be part of that discussion, and to make sure that we are, a team player, and trying to create kind of some community at the global level, which I think we've all really enjoyed. I think at this point, all of the board members have gone to Worlds at some point, and we've now formed relationships with other organizations and the people involved with those, and just made some really amazing friends. So yeah, we just want to make sure that we're kind of at the table and helping.
There's a lot of really lovely communication across associations. Like everyone is invested in helping all the other groups and countries grow. And it's especially lovely to see at times when global politics might not necessarily reflect the very best of what humans are capable of doing. But I'll tell you, global politics and puzzling sure do.
Like, I imagine there must be some differences on how some countries are approaching like the competition side of puzzling. Has JPA taken notes or learned anything from other countries when it comes to like maybe things that they stumbled across that they're like, oh, this worked really well, you guys should try this?
Definitely. We all like religiously watch each other's nationals live streams. Ooh, did you see what they did?
Yeah.
So we've gotten tons of lovely ideas from other countries and hope that they have gotten some from us too.
Yeah, like right now, like technologies that are being used for like scorekeeping, I'm really curious about. And I know they have some systems in other countries. And, so it's little things like that. And where actually like everyone is so generous almost because it's like, well, here's what we're doing. Do you want to have a look? And yeah, it's super, super fun. But yeah, I think we're all looking at each other to, I think we all have kind of a general, like it needs to be fair and, we're all using the same puzzle for the most part, like we're not giving 5 different puzzles for a competition. There's some standardizations that are out there. And when I first started, like I said, you look at the world site and there were maybe like 5 countries with names, right? And now I realize it was really not necessarily an organization, like maybe just a name. And now I think when I talked to Val the other day, she said there were like over maybe 35 country organizations. So it's growing quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, are there like initiatives or events that, USA JPA team would love to build if you had the time, the volunteers, the resources, sort of like where the organization is headed next, ideally?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's tricky with events at the global level is finding locations that are accessible. So far, Worlds has taken place only in Europe, which is kind of a nice central point for most of the planet to get to. We regularly get the question, like, would the USA JPA ever host a Worlds or would it ever come to the United States? And I think that's a possibility, but we would want to think about how to make that most accessible to some of the people who would have to travel the farthest. Like the Australian JPA is one of the biggest in the world, and we would want to make sure that it was still feasible for them, and that's quite a bit further. So that's one concern. I think there's also room to grow here. So we've seen for quite a few years, it was just the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship. But now this year, there was a new event that was launched also in Europe called the World Series. The Europeans have started doing a European championship. And that's an interesting idea. Like, I wonder if there would be space for a North American championship or the Americas championship or something like that. So I think there's lots of room to grow. And there's been tremendous growth, both the Canadian JPA and the Mexican Association, and then quite a few countries in South America now are experiencing pretty rapid growth in this activity. So I think there's a lot of exciting opportunity there. We just have to figure out who, when, how.
All the easy stuff.
And all of these associations are volunteer run, so everyone is doing this by night after our day jobs.
I would just to add to that, like I don't think the issue is the ideas. It's like is just reining it in, right? Being like, okay, we are volunteers. Like, what can we really do?
Right.
We have so many fantastic ideas, and it's like, okay, well, which ones are we gonna pick to focus on? We're trying and we're growing and we're getting there. We're doing lots of fun stuff. It's a lot.
What do you hope USA JPA gives to puzzlers that they might not be able to find on their own?
Crazy puzzle people. I mean, really, right, Becca? Like community.
Validation.
Fair.
No, really. It's been very helpful for me when I have conversations with my partner about the excessive puzzle collection in the house. I'm like, let me show you pictures from several of my buddies' houses. It could be worse, my friend.
No, seriously, if you think you have a puzzle problem, just come to us. We'll make sure your family knows. You're fine.
You're totally normal. You're probably on the lowest end of the spectrum of puzzles by number.
No, I think that community piece, though. I mean, puzzling is typically framed as a solo activity. Like, it's not sold to consumers with the intention of being done in a group unless it's the holiday season. Sort of like Faith was speaking about how for most people it's, around the holidays activity, but generally the like customers who are buying puzzles year round, it's framed as something you do as an individual activity to relax. And I think that's still true for many of us. It is still my go-to decompression activity, but what's different about speed puzzling is that it adds this boisterous fun and community piece to it that I'm not sure I realized was like missing in my life until I found it. And then I thought, wow, it had never occurred to me to associate these things in this way. So it really does boil back down to the people.
When people that aren't in the community like start to ask me about puzzles, because they'll be like, oh, I like puzzles. And then like I'll start talking and then I have to stop myself and be like, I am so sorry. Like I can literally talk jigsaw puzzles all day. Would you like to talk about cardboard, ribbon cut, random cut, wood, puzzle companies in the US, puzzle companies globally, organizations, speed puzzling, casual puzzling, large format. Like literally, and I love it so much. I don't know why, but I really have to be like conscious of the person I'm talking to because they say they like puzzles, like, yeah. So I have to kind of rein myself in and be like, I'm so sorry. Like I can talk about this all day.
That's so true.
But when you're with your puzzle people, like I rarely, if ever, get stumped on a puzzle question from, just the general public. But like when you're with puzzle people, you're like, you're learning things, right? Because they're bringing a different flavor to it. But it's just, yeah, it's kind of fun.
All right. So I typically end every interview with the same 3 puzzle questions, but I thought for today we could maybe approach it from sort of like JPA standard size, if that makes sense, and sort of educate maybe people who aren't familiar with some of that piece of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the official puzzle size by piece count for most competitions and why that size?
For individuals, generally, it's going to be 500 pieces for the higher level competitions. If you go to, a local event, you might see 300. But for nationals, it's a 500 piecer for solos. Pairs is where you see the most variation. Generally, it's 500 pieces, but there are competitions that use bigger ones. Both nationals and worlds in the past have done pairs 1000s.
Oh.
We were back to 500s this year. And then teams, there's also quite a bit of variation. Over the years, we've tried different models at the USA Nationals. Where we are right now is 2 back-to-back puzzles. In the preliminary rounds, it's a 500 and 1000, and then in the finals, it's 1000 and 1000. So how's that for the more complicated answer than you were expecting?
It's actually not that. It makes sense to me. Why do you think 500 is a sweet spot for competition?
Table space.
That makes sense.
Well, yeah, right. I'd say table space and time.
And time, yeah. So really, really fast speed puzzlers can do a 1000-piece puzzle in under 2 hours, sometimes well under 2 hours. But that's less common, and not a lot of us are training on those. And it would be a little bit more of a boring live stream if you were waiting around until the 1 hour, 45-minute mark for anything exciting to happen. Plus, we would have fewer rounds that we could offer if they were longer. So I think we've honed things a lot over the years and have found that really that's the sweet spot.
Sprint, not a marathon.
Yeah, there are puzzle marathons out there, which is also a fun format. So rather than seeing how fast you can do the one puzzle that everyone's doing, everyone gets a set of puzzles and you see how many of them you can get through in a certain amount of time. And I think that competition format is gaining a lot of traction. And it feels perhaps like a better fit for those who are not the sprinters, but really enjoy the idea of carving out 12 or 24 hours of their life to do nothing but puzzles. Oof. I love it. It sounds like heaven to me.
Yeah, me too.
On one hand, yes. On the other hand, my neck and my back are telling me like, whoa, you might have to train for that.
Strengthen your core. Working out's important.
So a competitor is finishing a puzzle and one piece is missing, and maybe it's more than one, but what is the standard practice for JPA when something like this happens at a competition?
You've got 10 seconds, basically. And actually, Becca, we didn't change our rules, did we? I always get nervous that we're changing rules and I'm unaware. But
No, still 10.
yeah, if you're missing a piece, you can kind of call time and then you'll get a 10-second penalty. It's really hard to say. Is it the puzzler's fault? Is the manufacturer's fault? But we do have a lot of confidence in our manufacturer. I've done a ton of Ravensburgers and very rarely do I miss a piece. But yes, of course it does happen. So there's a 10-second penalty, and we've all done it where we open the bag and pieces go flying. So missing pieces are always fun.
And a lot of times it does turn up before the 10 seconds have expired. So sometimes like you rub your hand over the puzzle and you find it, or pick up the bag and there it is. So if you're able to get it out and into the puzzle before the 10 seconds have expired, then the time is at that moment, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So the 10-second penalty only applies if you get to 10 seconds and you haven't yet found it. Then we don't penalize you any further.
Yeah. No, I wasn't aware of this, like that there was sort of like a penalty thing at play with time along with the missing piece thing. So I just have heard from speed puzzlers that it does happen sometimes.
Yeah, I think the spirit of the rule is that piece management is part of the task, but I don't know a single person who's ever not had a missing piece at least once in some competition somewhere. So it definitely happens.
A competitor opens a new puzzle and some of the pieces are stuck together, right? I've heard some whoppers about it being like 12 or 13 pieces conjoined in the craziest of times. Are there official rules around what they call the gift for competitions? How does it impact the event? And are you guys like taking any steps, or does the puzzle company to try and avoid this from happening at competition?
We really trust our company, our sponsor. There's a reason that we use them. We have a handful of puzzle companies that we kind of list as brands that we say are okay to use for competition, because there are some companies where the quality might not be as strong. I like hate to say that because I do love all puzzles, but if you do have big chunks stuck together, that really doesn't make it as fair. Look, I just watched a Ravensburger video. I think they said they have like 11 tons of pressure on the die when it cuts the puzzle. I think that's super fascinating. That is a lot of weight. So they have a production facility that like makes sure that doesn't happen. And then when the die gets, they can, I can't remember how many it is, but thousands of puzzles on the die, then they go and sharpen it and start over again. And like, you can tell when you get a puzzle, a Ravensburger, that's at the end of that sharpening time, because they're like, instead of having like 2 stuck together, you have like 10 sections of 2, but that's pretty uncommon.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. There's nothing in the official rules about it. So
No.
in speed puzzling, generally, you may accept the gifts that are given to you. I do know with some of the other competitions, like not USA JPA ones, but other competitions that I've participated in, sometimes if it's been an egregious amount, they might pull your result because it's really not quite fair. So I know that happened to me one time. I was doing a Zoom contest and like a third of the puzzle was already done when I dumped it out of the bag. And so I just flagged that and I said, this isn't fair. You should pull my time. And it was like, there was a significant difference in time. So it was obviously an unfair impact. And I think most puzzle people would flag something like that.
Clearly at the end of the die cut then.
Yeah.
Right, Faith?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we've never had an issue with that at nationals.
Well, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I so appreciate, Becca and Faith, you making time to hang out with me today and to help familiarize maybe some of us more casual puzzlers with what USA JPA is all about when it comes to community period for puzzling. So thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us and helping us spread the good word.
Wherever this episode found you today, I am super glad you're here. And however you puzzle, however you solve, you're doing it the right way.